Hello, citizens. This is another fairly impromptu one. My friend Frank from America is here again. We're just going to launch into this, and as we get closer to the the American election, I suppose. Anyway, Frank, how are you?
Doing well. The election, yes. All things considered, the family's healthy and happy, and I'm still gainfully employed. So yes, we're doing okay.
Okay, so the sky hasn't fallen in yet, then?
Not yet. Not yet. We're gonna have to see about that. It amazes me. If you don't mind, we'll being the ugly American, because it's all about Americans here. We'll start off with Trump. It amazes me that nobody's talking about his attempted assassination anymore. We've moved on to bigger and better things.
A very long time ago, wasn't it?
Oh God, it's ancient history. I think it was even before the internet when that happened. So no, it's ridiculous. What's not ridiculous, though, and I'll give credit where credit's due, I've never been a Trump simp at all. I've pointed out his flaws, and I've lauded him for the things that I did agree with. I definitely agree with what he has done, building a coalition with RFK Jr. And it's the melding of the MAGA and the MAHA people, which of course, it's Make America Great people, Trump's people, and Junior's Make America Healthy people. He's going to have to build coalitions like that to win this thing. I'm still not convinced the Cathedral or Goliath, or however those in power, are going to let him become president, even by landslide. They're going to use lawfare. They're going to try everything in their bag of tricks to keep him from gaining power again.
That is what I'm afraid of, actually.
Yeah.
Because I have been getting, because of the alliance with RFK. Were I an American and were I to have a free vote, I would have voted for him. I would have voted for Kennedy. But obviously, the reality of it is that Kennedy wasn't gonna gain enough votes, because it comes down to a binary choice, doesn't it?
It really does. He got his name on a few, like a dozen or so states' ballots, but we're fighting him tooth and nail just to get his name on the ballot on many other states. So I don't know, this is just my guess. He saw the writing on the wall and said, okay, well, this isn't going to happen, so let's see what we can do with the coalition. And I think Brett Weinstein might be the happiest man of all, because if you remember a couple of years ago, he was, at this point, I'm willing to listen to any weird idea. He came up with the weird idea of a unity ticket, where you had say a Democratic presidential candidate and a Republican vice president. They run on the same ticket, which I thought was insane years ago, but it's kind of making more sense now. I'm willing to listen to anything that can break up the swamp, or the duopoly, or whatever we want to title it nowadays. It's got 1,000 different names now. The regime, to break that up. It's going to take more than executives at the top. I think we've, in the last few years, if anybody's been paying attention, it's proven that it doesn't matter who's sitting in the Oval Office, and it doesn't even matter if they're cognitively aware.
It's like people behind. It's almost like Twitter, isn't it? When when Twitter was being run by the blob,
right?
And Elon Musk came in, fired 75% of it, and it made no difference.
It made a little difference. Yeah, there was a few. Alex Jones came back. It made a slight difference
to the administration of it. Like
Right.
75% of the people weren't necessary.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's all dead weight. And that goes back to the whole COVID debacle. Yes, I'm going to use that word quite often. Apparently, the COVID thing was what pissed me off. Is the federal government said, well, the term essential employees kept getting thrown around, and I'm like, well, if you're not essential, how are you employed there?
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to, I'm not going to dox myself, but with my job, they issued all of us little cards that had the Department of Transportation and a bunch of federal bureaucracies, their logos on it, labeling me an essential employee. Oh, I'm so proud that they think I'm essential. My wife kind of thinks I'm incredibly essential.
Yeah.
But they had the gall to condescend down to me and say that I am. Go to hell. I'm sorry. Just go to hell, man. That pisses me off.
I think it's interesting. I think the fact that RFK's allied with Trump now, I mean, that's significant in itself.
It's huge.
That way rather than the other way, because
yeah,
realize how corrupt the Democrats are, and also probably the mainstream Republicans as well. But I think it shows a sort of almost a humility from Trump that he can have someone to help.
Yeah. Well, he's getting older, and maybe he's learned from some of his mistakes. Yeah. Now, it's his ego and his bravado that's gotten him this far. I'm hoping, and many others here hope, that he has learned his lesson about who he surrounds himself with. And yeah, with Kennedy's stance on guns and a few things I do not agree with whatsoever. But it's gotten to the point to where, all right, the important thing to me is the economy, immigration. When it comes to just federal level stuff that they've got their little piggy toes into. There's a handful of issues that are incredibly important to me, and if you agree 70% of those, or 60% of the issues that I think are the most important, then you're no enemy of mine. And that's the way Trump's going to have to look at it. Trump did go to the Libertarian Convention, and it was ugly at points, and it's the Libertarians, God bless them, but that's never happened before. So he's willing to do different things. He's willing to kind of test the water on different things. He's gone on different podcasts. I think he and his team are aware that you notice he's not going to go on CNN or ABC anytime soon, though he probably should, because he would really put them in their place. Maybe they don't want him there anyway, but he's willing to do different things.
I thought that was a bit chicken shit of him, actually, to be honest. But maybe it's the right decision. I don't know.
Right. Did you happen to see the debate?
I didn't, but I did hear about it, and I did hear that it was 3 against 1, certainly. But
oh, definitely. It was late for me. I have to be in bed before the roosters crow, so to speak. But I did stay up to watch maybe the first 30 minutes of it, and Kamala, she prepped herself very well. She presented herself and her incredibly horrible arguments very well. She represented that. She represented the regime very well. And I think it took Trump back a little bit. And you could tell there was a couple times where you could really tell she was getting under his skin. That's his weakness. If you really get under his skin, he's gonna come off abrasive. He's gonna come off nasty. He's gonna really step in it that way. And he can't afford to lose any voters. And that said, I'm really not sure if they're even going to let them. It could be a landslide, and more than half the states, I read the other day, more than half the states have done nothing to improve the security for voting machines and the voting process. And I'm like, we've had all these years to figure out what went wrong. Oh, you don't want to fix it. Okay, all right, you obviously don't want to have safe and fair elections. My opinion is you paper votes, and and you match them up with your ID. You have to show some form of ID, in my opinion. You have to have an ID to do anything else in this country except vote.
Is that because you're a racist bigot?
Oh, you've called me out, man. You caught me. I'm sorry. Yes, my tattoos are showing. No, um, no, yeah, it's ridiculous. If we really wanted to, and I managed to peek in on some of the British elections that happened a while back, and was amazed that the results were like that. Bam! That evening, people went to the polls, and that evening we knew what happened. While
we have had postal votes, though. I mean, we have had postal votes, and there are some places like there's the borough of East London called Tower Hamlets, and I mean that appears as corrupt as you like, and they had massive amount of mail-in ballots. I mean, I don't understand why you need voting machines. I mean, I know the numbers are big, but it's only counting, isn't it?
Right.
It's only counting. I mean, you think you'd have 3 teams, wouldn't you? Separate from each other. Right, that team counts. Then they all come over here. That team counts, and then you have a third one as a confirmatory one, and they count. Right. And if there's a big disparity, they've all got to do it again. Yeah. I mean, I know America's a bigger country, but it's probably split up into the same manageable groups.
Districts, smaller provinces or districts or townships. Yeah, it can be done. It was done for decades and decades. But in my opinion, they make it more complicated on purpose. Yeah. So there are more loopholes and more things to exploit that way.
Yeah. More deniability. Yeah. Oh, it wasn't us. It was.
Oh. Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, we've fallen victim to the middle management, crisis that it's never anybody's fault. Nobody's ever going to be held accountable, because some nameless agency, it's their fault. No, it's their fault. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I don't really know what to think about the last election. I mean, some people tell you it was genuinely a Biden victory, and some people were insisting that it absolutely wasn't. And I don't have the information to know the difference. I mean, certainly I think that the establishment is not above cheating. I mean, right. It's absolutely not above cheating. And certainly with opening the border and all these undocumented migrants being allowed to vote, all the rest of it. I mean, it's just, I mean, it's not maybe evidence, but it's very, very strong circumstantial evidence that something dodgy.
Right. It's not a bug. It is a feature. It's the. I'm not sure who said it. I'm stealing somebody else's wisdom here, but it's never their intent. It's the outcome. That was their intent. It's not about principles. It's not about good intentions or anything like that. It's about grabbing power by any means necessary. We have our people in place, and we're going to have our way. We're going to deny it at first. Oh no, the borders aren't open, and then they'll go down to the next level after being called out, after taking way too long to call them out on something. Then they'll go, oh well, it's only happening here and there. You're being a right-wing conspiracy theorist there, and then when you keep pushing them, then they'll say, well, yes, it is happening, and it's good, and that's always going to be their final thing, and that's. And that's what drives me nuts about the conservatives and your typical non-leftist normie person here is they just take it, and they take it and they take it. And the trick is not to fall. The left and the regime has, and mind you, of course, it's mostly a reminder for myself. The term regime isn't left or right. It is power or powerless. It's the powerful versus the powerless. So it could be GOP, it could be Dem, it could be whoever. They will do whatever it takes to grab their power and screw everybody else up. They will send people to war. It's not going to be my child, in the trenches, but it's for the betterment of everybody else that the poor families are going to have their sons and daughters slaughtered by the thousands or whoever. So yeah, it's sad. It really is.
Yeah, well, it's funny because this sort of thing that I've always been astonished by how democracy has worked in the past. Because if you think about it, democracy it's reliant on the people who do the counting.
Yeah.
It's and I'm sure that most of those people who do the counting, the people who actually count the votes, I'm sure most of them are completely straight. And it's astonishing that our entire civilization rests on those people because they're interested in democracy, but they're not interested in the result.
Yeah, and accuracy.
They're just interested in the procedure, into the procedure of democracy. But and I spoke to a woman some months ago who said that she was doing some of the counting on the thing, and she told me about all these checks and balances there were, which makes you feel, well, maybe it is all genuine. Maybe it is all genuine. Maybe there isn't any cheating. But the thing is, I wouldn't know that, and I wouldn't know if it had changed. And how would it?
Right.
This is the thing. We have, there was a point in which we trusted everything, and now we don't trust it because
no. Well, didn't you get the memo that was down in the basement of this government building? So it goes back to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy again, to where we told everybody. No, you didn't.
Yeah.
It's bald-faced power grabs now, and damn the people that damn the general public that wanted a certain way. One thing that does give me hope, though, back to coalitions. Have you seen what they're doing? It's a big event in D.C. I think in September, mid-September. Rescue the Republic.
Yeah, I think I've heard little snippets of that. Yeah.
Interesting coalition of people. We have Russell Brand and RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard. We have some figures on the left and figures on the right. Brett Weinstein. Many other that their names escape me at this moment. Angela McArdle, the chairwoman of the Libertarian Party, the National Libertarian Party.
It's good for them to get involved. It's like libertarians, they're kind of out on their own always. You can't get them to agree with anyone, can you? Right.
Well, we'll talk about Libertarian Party if that's what you're getting at in just a second, because they're actually doing a few good things that I agree with. But with Rescue the Republic, it's a huge event, hoping to spark off, hoping to push forward and give some momentum to the anti-war movement, which really, I think, is starting to gain some ground. And that's, like I said, I have no problem. I would proudly stand next to a communist as long as that communist is anti-war, if not more than myself. And they're building coalitions. They've got a lot of people that I don't agree with when it comes to many social issues. But if you're willing to stand with me and make sure that we can end all wars or do something to get the regime's attention about it, the better.
Sometimes it's it's an inescapable fact that sometimes wars are necessary, But the trouble is, it's almost been the default position for, I don't know, for 40, 50 years or something that, if we've got a problem, we've got to send in the Marines or something. It's like, you will have democracy. You fucking will have it. And if you don't want democracy, we're going to send in the fucking Marines.
Right.
Thousands of miles away. It's like,
right. The beatings will continue until morale gets better.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know. when you're dealing with the United States government, which is the largest, most powerful corporation, the largest power in the world, with the largest military in the world. China might be bigger, but I don't think they're as advanced as we are. I don't know. They've been stealing a lot of our tech. Maybe they are more advanced than we are. Anyway,
to Afghanistan to buy loads of stuff off the Taliban.
Oh, I know. And notice we don't talk about that either. Leaving behind 30 billion, 80 billion dollars worth of military.
$85 billion, I think it was worth.
God.
I mean, yeah. $85 billion. I mean, that's if you're thinking a pound to dollar parity, which it isn't, but it's close enough.
Right.
That's about twice what our military budget is.
For the year?
Yeah.
Oh God.
And you guys just left all that.
Oh, well, I've left my wallet in the bathroom. I'll get another wallet. Like what? No, yeah, it's ridiculous.
But if there are enough people who are pushing against this default position of, if we've got a problem with another country, we've got to go to war, then that will be good. That will be a good thing, because, I mean, my government as well it's kind of pathetic now. The British Army is almost nothing now. I mean, there's fuck all left of it. We've got about 12 ships, and we've given all our tanks to the Ukraine. It's people talk about what with all the riots and everything happening, maybe we should bring the army. The army won't fucking do anything. There's not enough of them.
Yeah.
The army is half the size of the police force, and there's only 130,000 police officers in the country. It's like, it's going to make no difference. I mean, I know the army are heavily armed, but there just aren't enough of them. And for 10 years during the 70s, the British Army, when it was quite an impressive thing, one of the most professional armies in the world, was on the back foot in Northern Ireland, with probably maybe 3,000 armed Irish Republican terrorists.
Right.
That's probably all it was,
Yeah.
And just fighting a guerrilla war, and they kept the British Army on its toes for all that time. I mean, the British Army can't do fuck all now. They're pathetic now. Pathetic. Even the Americans have started to say that the British forces are now no longer an elite force. Not because there's anything wrong with them in their fighting capabilities, but there just aren't enough of them. They don't have enough stuff to look after themselves.
And they're not set up for success either, I bet. America's military has been weakened left or right with diversity hiring and bending the knee to the whole woke bullshit, pardon my French. So we're not as strong as we could be, that's for sure. Now, we got money, but we're so far in debt that money isn't backed by anything, of course. It could crumble, it could fall like a house of cards tomorrow for all we know. But there's enough other countries and enough people that have faith in our dollar that it keeps chugging along somehow. I don't get it.
That will probably last forever.
Oh, definitely. Line always goes up. No. Sometimes it doesn't, and you just don't want to be around when it doesn't.
But to go back to the thing about the wars and stuff, I mean, you probably haven't heard of this because it's small being used to you, but to us, I mean, the Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary have been over in America asking this is how pathetic it is, asking the American government, if it's okay for the Ukrainians to fire our British-built missiles into Russia. Now,
I saw something about that and just didn't understand the headline.
I mean, it's pathetic as it is. I mean, it's a ridiculous and irresponsible escalation of this whole shit anyway. And I mean, Russia has more nukes than America does.
Yeah.
I mean, and America's got quite a few, as I understand. So there's a stupid escalation there anyway. But then there's also the sort of the humiliation of we've got these British-built missiles that we've given to the Ukrainians, and now we have to ask the Americans if we have to ask the Americans if we can fire them. You know, so not only is it stupid escalation, it's also sort of humiliating as well. So so it's like as everything in Britain these days, it's the worst of all worlds. You know, but you know, I suppose we'll see what happens. I guess. But, you know.
Yeah. We and being anti-war is also being anti-proxy war. We should not be sending a single bullet or a single plane or a single rifle to any country, be it Israel, be it Ukraine, whoever. We should not be, you know, and I am a dyed-in-the-wool capitalist. If you want to make an honest buck, I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. If you want to make an honest buck, make one. That's not honest. That, you know, when it comes to warmongering and you know, and trying to poke the bear, you know, indirectly. No, I'm sorry.
There was an American general, I think an Air Force general. He posted something on X the other day, and it was a real, you know, it was another really irresponsible thing. Because basically he was saying that because people are saying, look, don't keep poking the bear. You know, and he says, and his response was, if the Russians use one nuke, he said that, you know, and there was this sort of computer graphic of all the nukes from all the bases and all the submarines from everywhere in the world that would just land on Russia, and that 45 million Russians would be vaporized immediately. And I just thought,
how incredibly irresponsible.
I know. It was incredible. It's like, you know, I just thought these are the people in charge. And so what he was kind of saying is that we're going to keep poking them, until they retaliate, and then when we retaliate, we're going to, as if the Russians can't retaliate themselves, as if they haven't had 70 years or whatever it is to retaliate themselves. You know, so it's astonishing. These madmen that were in charge.
Yes. War pigs, every one of them. War pigs, man. And of course, I bet this
Doctor Strangelove, isn't it? It's the guy on the Slim Pickens in Doctor Strangelove. You know, with the on the
riding the missile, the bomb all the way down, man. Yeah. Well, and I bet this general doesn't have any children in the military or military age, or if they do, they're not going to see a day, you know, in boot camp or anywhere close to any of this war.
Yeah, they're probably in Guam or somewhere like that, aren't they? On a nice cushy base in the Pacific somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, if they're in the military at all, which I doubt. And that's the thing that goes back to if you want to declare, if you want to declare war, go right ahead. Use your own children. Use your own people. Go fight your little war, and we'll see how quickly those wars end.
Then do that. Yeah, it's just, I mean, it is quite disgusting, really, these people. I mean, how these people have managed to get to the top of things, you know, it's just astonishing. I mean, I was going to say something else that was quite profound and interesting, but I forgot what it was now. So
I'm sure it'll come back. Okay, on a more positive note, are you familiar with Defend the Guard? What's
that?
It was started by the Libertarian Party 2 or 3 years ago. Actually, it's probably older than that. It's maybe 10 years old. It's a piece of legislation that they've been passing around to all the states, and over half of them have ratified it. It states that every state has their own National Guard, their own state level militia, so to speak, funded by the state. And the federal government has taken upon themselves.
Funded by the individual state.
Yes, like Texas.
This gets confusing when your country's called the United States. It gets confusing. Yeah. So.
Yes. They may do that on purpose. Anyway, no. And the federal government, the United States Army, Navy, Marines, and all that have been taking state level National Guards and sending them to Afghanistan,
Right.
sending them to where, you know, all of our hundreds of bases throughout the globe, unfortunately. And this law, this piece of legislation that we're slowly getting ratified coast to coast, says federal government can't touch our National Guard anymore. You cannot have them. We pay them and we train them to take care of Texas or North Dakota or wherever they're located, and they're not leaving the state, which is a brilliant move because it really takes out. If you didn't know, the Army, all our national level armed forces are having a hell of a time getting recruits. And it's because of all the rainbow flags and all that bullshit, I'm sure. So, and
it's the same over here. You know, they can't. The RAF were saying they were going to stop recruiting useless white males, like the ones that beat the Luftwaffe in 1914.
Right, not just the backbone of your entire society. Yeah, wonderful. But I think 26 out of the 50 states have ratified Defend the Guard, saying that the federal government are not allowed to take our guys anymore, which is brilliant.
Are they red states? Are they mostly Republican states?
I would think so. I don't know for sure. I've not looked into it recently, but I would think it was all mostly Republican states. Yes. So, and like I said, the Libertarian Party has been pushing that successfully.
Well, that is good. Yeah, that is good because you need. That's the thing about having individual states and the states' rights. Is it 14th Amendment or something for the states' rights, something like that? The one that guarantees.
I should know.
Yeah, come on,
man. I don't. Sure. Yeah. Let's say it's 14th. I guess. I don't know. I think is it the Ninth Amendment is women's rights, I think, and 14th I think is that. Yeah. I used to know it back in the day, but America has got to come to grips with getting away from the World War II narrative that we are the good guys and we and a few of our allies are the good guys and we have some big bad guys. Not to say that the communist Soviet Russia they were definitely the bad guys. I get that. North Korea, definitely the bad guys. I get that. But
it's got a lot more confusing of late, isn't it? I mean, it has got a lot more confusing. I mean, it's that famous scene from that British comedy show. Can't remember what it's called now, but the two guys dressed in Nazi uniforms going, "Oh, are we the baddies?"
Right. These are skulls. These are skulls. Are we the baddies? Yeah. Right. It's never as cut and dry as people think they are. Now, yes, the victors get to write the history books.
Yes.
Yes, that's always how it's been.
Churchill admitted as much, didn't he? Churchill admitted as much. You know, he said, you know, the history will be kind to me because I will write it.
Yeah, right. So, you know, America's had to come to grips with our icons. Lincoln in particular, he was not an angel. Lincoln got rid of habeas corpus. Lincoln imprisoned over 600 journalists and newspapers. Oh, hello, sweetie. Look at this. Breakfast. I love you.
Oh, marvelous.
She sheepishly ran off. She's camera shy. Back to Lincoln. Okay, so I want to talk about Lincoln, but you know, before I talk about Churchill, because I grew up as a kid. Okay, back to Lincoln. Lincoln, and this may piss off a lot of people. Lincoln did not free the slaves to free the slaves. Lincoln, and it's all documented. He's got diaries. He's got people A lot of letter correspondence. He corresponded with letters to many people back in the day, and he explained his stance when it came to the American Civil War. He was not going to let the Union break up on his watch. Bottom line, that's all it was. He was not going to lose half of his states while he was in the Oval Office, or in power. I'm not sure if the Oval Office was around back then, but anyway, you know what I'm saying. While he was in power, he wasn't going to let the South secede, because almost all of the raw goods were coming from the South and being processed up in the North. When he signed the Emancipation Proclamation, it had said nothing to do about the slaves. The North actually still had slaves, just not as many in the South. And it wasn't industrialized. It wasn't corporatized, so to speak. But there were still slave owners up in the North. It was ego for Lincoln. And of course, we've completely revamped his reputation over the years. I grew up, it was Lincoln and Roosevelt and Washington and Jefferson, and they were the icons of American greatness. And he might actually be one of the worst presidents we've ever had. And of course, the second you bring this up, people say, "Oh, you want slavery?" No, that's not what I'm talking about at all. Because, like you said, you poke that icon, that pervasive ethos that everybody. And like I said, I grew up thinking the same way. But if you read what he read his own words, go to the source materials of what he himself said, it wasn't about slavery at all. Slavery was just a really good PR aspect of it all, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Because if you were to challenge Lincoln's reputation, that obviously means you want to own black people.
Right. Yeah, you must have the stars and bars on the back of your pickup truck with the gun rack. You know, no, what's right is right. You know, and like I said, I'm glad the slaves were freed, but that was not his reason. That was just an after effect that he's like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll go with that.
I mean, years ago, I was working with quite a number of Southerners who tell me similar things, and it didn't go into detail. But you know, I mean, I have to say, to my shame, I just kind of dismissed it as, you know, just bravado, really. But you know, but I mean, I have read one or two things that from General Lee that was quite conciliatory and quite abolitionist himself.
Yeah,
which is that kind of screws with your worldview, doesn't it?
I know.
And we're having to deal with this stuff all the time, aren't we? Because you know, all of the things that we've taken on faith, you know, we have to sort of question everything now. We have to question everything, you know.
Right. There's a white pill for you. I think even more and more people, not a majority of the normies by any means, but more and more every day, people are questioning the status quo, and that's a good thing. Yeah. That's a very good thing. That said, did you see what Daryl Cooper, aka Martyr, made? He went on Tucker Carlson.
I heard about it third hand. I haven't listened to it. You know,
okay. Watch it. It's a great interview. If you get a chance, watch it. And and what's funny is he talked about a number of topics that I thought would be a lot more controversial, but what really stuck in the craw of a lot of boomers and a lot of neocons was the fact that oh, and I've completely drawn a blank all of a sudden. That Churchill was not the good guy is what, in very, you know, stripped down, simplified terms. That Churchill was not he pretty much delineated a few things that Churchill had done, and that completely pissed off people that carry on. I've heard it called the Nuremberg narrative ever since the end of ever since the end of World War II, where we put these German war criminals on trial. That set the stage for Germany is evil, we are angelic. And that narrative has carried us all the way from the 40s, of course, as America is the righteous, and we have our buddies, we have the UK and Australia and whoever are our buddies, but the Germans are evil and we are good, and that is not right. America still needs to answer for the firebombing of Dresden, the Dresden firebombing, the second atomic bomb dropped on Japan, completely unnecessary. But those with power get to write the narratives. And Daryl Cooper poked the bear, so to speak, by saying, well, okay, now Churchill did this, that, and the other, and I don't remember a lot of the specifics because I grew up, I loved Churchill. Gary Oldman's last movie with Churchill, I loved. But of course, that's, they wrote it to make him look good, I'm sure. I'll have to go back and watch it to see. I'll have to do a little homework and then watch it to see if any.
One of my best friends actually has been encouraging me to revisit my opinion of Churchill.
Okay. And I understand countries need their icons. They need their leaders. I get that. But you got to be truthful about it.
Yeah. I mean, as far as I understand it, and I haven't, and because he hasn't pushed it too much, because he's respectful and he knows what I respect and stuff like that. But he says, you really ought to have a look at this again. And I think his main thrust of it is that Churchill was bankrolled by the Rothschilds, for their reason.
Yeah.
For their nefarious reasons. I'm reluctant to go down this road. I confess I'm reluctant to go down this road because, because of where it might lead. But I am going to have to sort of look at these things a bit more. I mean, I am reading a great big fat tome on Churchill at the moment. I mean, it's taking me forever because it's 1,000 pages, and it is considered to be one of the best by Andrew Roberts. But I mean, the thing is, it is generally a positive account of Churchill.
Okay.
And some of the things that they say about Churchill, just they say them, and then they think that much going to stick. One of the things is that he caused the Bengal famine, which is just bollocks. It's just nonsense. Basically, there was a typhoon in southeast of Asia that wiped out the rice crop. Okay. In Burma and parts of India. And what they would normally do in those situations is that they would import rice from Thailand and Vietnam and Laos and all those other places, but all of those places were under the control of the Japanese.
Okay.
So the Japanese weren't about to sell them any rice. So what they ended up having to do was they had to get it from Australia and other places, and grain and stuff from Australia and Canada and other places. And I mean, Churchill was in the middle of conducting a war, but it does sound as if, he did the best he could to alleviate, and back then, even in the 40s, communication is not what it is now. So, but that's just one of the things that people throw at him and say, oh, he was a racist and stuff. But nevertheless, I'm being nudged into, looking at things about Churchill which I'd rather not, but this is, like you say, honesty is that you've got to look at these things.
Right. If you get a chance, I've read a few articles, and most of the articles, I remember the first time I heard about Churchill and the Lusitania, the first source it was years ago, and I completely discarded it because the source was incredibly unreliable. But it's starting to rear its head again that possibly, we don't know for sure, possibly Churchill sent the Lusitania with thousands of Americans and lots of ammunition and war provisions that wasn't supposed to even be on that boat, right through the middle of German submarine wolf packs on purpose to draw America into the war. And there might be a little truth behind that, which would be incredibly wrong, of course. So, and like I'm saying, I think we need to now see. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people there out there nowadays, especially the progressive left, that just want to tear down icons to tear them down. That is not my goal whatsoever. I just want to know the truth. I just want to know what's going on. And I think once you start poking at these icons, I think it's more edifying to see who gets angry about it. You know, oh, hold on, why does that bother you? I'm just asking questions here.
Yeah, because that went down really well during COVID, wasn't it? Just asking questions.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, a lot of people took their masks, left their masks on, but took off their mask, socially speaking. I don't know the word for that. When they were given a little bit of power, they wanted to.
Yeah.
They wanted to be the tyrants they always wanted to be. And
I mean, that was right. That was a proper learning curve. That was.
Yeah.
We've been living amongst these people. Yeah, we thought these people were our friends.
Yep.
You know? And then these people were the people who were going to snitch to the authorities about us. You know, I mean, the whole COVID thing it kind of destroyed my faith in humanity generally because, and I hate to say it, you know, I hate to say it, but most people are not very bright and they're not very courageous. In fact, most people are quite cowardly.
They would rather be safe than free.
Yeah.
Which, no, that was my big wake up call too. I'd seen glimpses of it back in the day with the Tea Party movement, and I really thought that people would get on the, take a pro-liberty stance on a lot of things that were coming down the pike, a lot of things that were already established, and it completely fizzled out and got taken over by the Republicans. The mainstream GOP neocons took all that over. And that was my first, because that was back when I still thought, well, most people are libertarian. They just don't know it yet. Yeah, no.
Yes.
No, seriously, I used to say that all the time. That's how naive I was.
Well, you'd think they would be, wouldn't you? Because most people, they wouldn't think to ask permission before taking their car out.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, guns is right on the edge. It's right on that far edge of the libertarian thing because, you know, it's deadly force and all the rest of it. So you know, guns are a sort of a more extreme case of it. But, you know, one of the great things about, you know, cars and, you know, to even more extent motorbikes is that you can just get them and go wherever you want without the permission of anyone. And you'd think everybody would enjoy that freedom. And it turns out that, in fact, that wasn't really all that important to them.
No.
You know? So if you are somebody like me who really values that, it's been the strangest experience of my life to find out that advocating for freedom and liberty has been so difficult.
Yeah.
You know, it's just astonishing, really. You know, but
I think we project what we want onto other people and hoping that they agree with us, you know, like, right. Here in America, you can't just go fishing. You have to have a license to go fish.
Same here.
You know, you have to have a license. You have to have a certificate to do anything in this country. It's ridiculous.
You have to have a license to collect rainwater.
Right. In some places, not everywhere, but yeah, too many places.
I mean, it comes out of the sky, man.
Yeah.
It just doesn't belong to anybody.
I know. How about marriage licenses? What does the government have to do with all, you know, with now, if you want to sign a personal contract for legal purposes, if it's you and your personal lawyer or a prenup or something private, I'm all for that. But don't tell me I have to get, you know, a piece of paper with the state stamp on it to do anything, you know.
I think that's one of the problems that we've fallen into is that, and I think this is the only way out of this is that, and this is also relevant to like your coming election and our previous one, you know, one we've just had, is that, and also because you know, it's quite obvious that Biden hasn't been in charge for ages.
Yeah,
it's obvious. You know, you can scarcely string a sentence together.
And yeah, and you are now allowed to say that now.
But there's something has kept the show on the road. Something. Yeah. So if it's not Biden and his team, who is it? It's the blob, isn't it? It's the deep state. Something else. So it doesn't really matter who it is in the White House. It's the people that never leave those positions.
Yep.
You know, and I think that one of the things that and I'm trying to encourage people to see it this way, is that it doesn't really matter what laws they make. It doesn't really matter. Just ignore them. I worked out that there is one police officer to every 532 people in this country. You know, I just checked it up with America as well. The ratio is pretty much the same. It's about one person, one police officer to every 500 people.
Okay.
Now, if one person breaks the law, you're in trouble. You know, maybe even if 5 do, but you only got to get to 10, and there's nothing they can do. And of course, once you get to 100, there really is nothing they can do.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, this is a precursor to the breakdown of law and order, because as people will realise that, they'll realise that the police are an irrelevance, really.
Right. Right.
And although that will usher in an age which we are unfamiliar with, one with no law and order, you know, that is because the alternative is totalitarian subservience. That's the alternative. You know, if everybody just believes that the state is all powerful, but you know, the state isn't. You know, we think it is, and everyone's getting exercised of whether it will be, you know, Trump or Harris in the White House. You know, but in essentially it doesn't matter. You know, it would be better. It would be far better, from my point of view, if Trump with RFK was in the White House. You know, and I wouldn't be at all happy if Kamala wins. But in the end, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. And if people can just understand that it doesn't matter, then, you know, we can start doing things for ourselves again.
Right. Going back to laws, I think it was Michael Malice that said that if something has to be written down in law, you've already lost the argument. We should be policing ourselves within our own communities and our own societies and the people that we choose to associate ourselves with. Okay, example, I go to work and I clock in, and I know that if I walk up to Jimbo and punch him in the face, everybody around me is going to jump me and let me know real quick that I should not punch him in the face. We police ourselves. There are certain things that you do or you do not do when you police yourselves. Now, if the company were to make a policy saying no punching in the face, well, all that means is that somebody's already punched somebody in the face. You know, I remember years ago, this might have been the beginning spark of how overregulated we are. 20, maybe 30 years ago on 2020, the TV show, John Stossel, great libertarian, did a 5-minute piece on the standard 6-foot A-frame ladder being built in America, and that it required by federal mandate to have 26 different warning stickers on a 6-foot A-frame step ladder. One of them being, and he showed it, and to this day I'll never forget it. It said, "Do not pour sulfuric acid while standing on the top rung of this ladder." Okay, well that tells me, and he brought it up, and that's what has always put that little seed in my head. That, in other words, one idiot stood on the top of that ladder and poured sulfuric acid off the top of this ladder. And of course, these warning labels are supposed to protect them from liability and lawsuits. So going back to laws in general, I like order. I like order and security like anybody else. But once you start having to write it on paper, you've already lost the battle when it comes to whatever you're trying to prevent. People self-organize. Not all people, mind you. We'll just call them good people, self-organize. If you've noticed, at least in America, if you're flying down the highway, nobody does the speed limit. Everybody does 5, 10, 15 miles an hour over the speed limit, but that's our unspoken agreement that the flow of traffic is going to go at this speed, right? And their cops on the side of the road will slow down a little bit, but very few people actually slow down to the actual speed limit while driving by a cop on the side of the road, because the cop can't pull all of us over.
No.
Now they'll get the idiot on the motorcycle popping a wheelie going 100 miles an hour down the slow lane. He'll get him because that's low-hanging fruit. But people generally self-organize. They want to feel safe. They want to be prosperous. And this goes back to my old libertarian roots that I'm slowly having to. I'm gonna keep a few basic principles of libertarianism, anti-war, property rights, and things like that. But I'm actually having to pull myself away from that mentality anymore because it really hasn't gotten us anywhere. Not the Libertarian Party itself has done some great coalition building, and they're actually being a player in the game now, and I laud them for that. But the actual traditional libertarian mind that everybody just wants to be free, that narrative is gone now.
Pure libertarianism would have an open border, wouldn't it?
Some say yes, some say no. Some break it down as a left-leaning libertarian would have open borders and a right-leaning would not. I think, and it can go either way. I mean, because see, that's just libertarian is so squishy that it can be interpreted however you want it to. I look at it as a property rights issue. If I happen to own some property, on the Texas-Mexico border, it's my property. You're not allowed unless you're invited. So,
yeah.
So that's a closed border there.
Well, your front door is a border, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. These open border people, I would love to ask them, so you leave your front door wide open? You don't lock your back door? That's a border. And, the Pope wants to talk about open borders, yet he's walled into Vatican, isn't he? He's locked down and pretty secure behind those high walls. So
I'd like to see 150,000 African migrants turn up in the Vatican. That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Not very Christian of you, Pope.
Yeah.
To not take care of these people that you still want to take care of. Oh Lord. How about one last topic? Have you been paying attention to I know y'all have your own immigrant crisis going on in the UK there.
They're at the Haitians.
The Haitians, yes. They are putting out billboards. The FBI, I saw on Twitter. I still can't call it X yet, but anyway, on Twitter, they're posting photos of the billboards in Springfield, Ohio, paid by the FBI, saying, if you see a hate crime, call it in, written in English and the French Creole version of the Haitian's language, in two different languages.
In Spanish? No, he's not Spanish yet. No.
I don't know. I think it said something about Creole, which is an offshoot of French, I think. I'm not sure. Anyway, in the Haitian native tongue and in English, it says, if you see a hate crime, call this number.
Right. Okay.
So the Haitians can just go, oh, well, I'm going to pick up my government gifted cell phone and call, because these people are being racist.
Yeah. So if they eat your cat, is that a hate crime or not? Is that a hate crime? I don't know.
Well, no, see, it depends on where that cat and that Haitian lines up in the hierarchy of racism.
Right. Okay.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
a
To be fair, cats are amongst the most privileged animals on the earth. Domestic cats. I mean, look, here we go. Look, there's one here. Look, there's one there. Look.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So she's just decided she's going to just sit here now. No. So she's pretty privileged, I guess. But
Right.
Yeah, well, that's. I mean, we're having this sort of situation all the time, aren't we? I mean, in England, we're having people from a certain demographic are stealing sheep from fields so they can kill them in a halal way. I mean,
Okay.
all sorts of farmers having all sorts of livestock stolen. It's like this is something that didn't used to happen, but it does happen now.
Right.
And of course, it has nothing whatsoever to do with immigration. Not at all. Doesn't have anything to do with it at all. But yeah. So that whole. So where is the discussion there? Is it still being denied that they're eating the cats, or
There are.
or is it at that stage now? Well, it's good that they're eating the cats.
Right. There have been one or two, very few verified instances of pets being stolen and eaten. Yes, it's not as widespread as Trump would make it out to be, or a lot of his camp were to be, but there have been a few.
It takes something to catch a cat.
What's that?
Catch a cat. Have you tried catching a cat?
Yeah, especially when they don't want to be caught. Yeah. Good luck with that. But no, it's geese and ducks at the park. We have parks all over the place, and the geese, you go in there and you feed the geese or the ducks or whatever. There's been some stuff out there. It's not as prevalent as people think it is. It shouldn't happen at all, though. On top of that, I think the bigger issue is the traffic accidents, the sexual assaults. This is a people that, if you've ever seen, go on Google Maps and just zoom in on the island of, is the whole island called Haiti? No. It's I should know this.
Isn't it Hispaniola? Isn't it Hispaniola? Half of it.
Island, I should know this. I used to be really good at geography, but not anymore.
Dominican Republic, isn't it? And the other.
Yeah, Dominican Republic is on one side of the island, the majority of the island, and the other third is Haiti. And in the Dominican Republic, they will incarcerate you, if not shoot you on the spot, if you're Haitian trying to cross their border. That's pretty hardcore. I wonder why. Well, Haiti is rife with voodoo and very suspect rituals and things like that. They're very third world. And you take a very third world culture and plant them in the middle of a small town of 60,000 people, and you bring 20,000 Haitians of these people to that town, the shit's going to hit the fan one way or another.
You mean they're not going to immediately turn into Americans?
Yeah, because they're just yearning for democracy. They want democracy. No, they've actually been paid off by NGOs, a lot of Catholic NGOs, by the way, and that's a discussion for another day. A lot of Catholic NGOs, non-governmental organizations, are recruiting them and saying, "Hey, want to come to America? The government will give you this, and this, and come on, and all the free ducks you can eat at the park." So, and they're getting shipped over there, and it's horrific. And you're not allowed to talk about the actual thing they've got. I'm not even sure if I should bring it up. There's closed circuit video of small convenience store, and the camera's right above the clerk, and he's got his counter, and the customers come in through the front door. A little girl comes in to buy a candy bar or something, and an older Haitian gentleman comes in behind her and just leans over her and starts whispering in her ear, and the clerk's like, "No, get the hell out of here." and has to run him off.
Mm.
So that's anecdotal, I know, but that you can't take somebody from such third world, uncivilized environment and plug them right in the middle, of a town, and a town anywhere, or a town in Ohio, and it's rampant.
I've been wondering whether, and this is a tricky thing to say really, but some of the behaviour of these people is so far beyond what anybody would consider respectable, normal, rational, respectable behaviour. I mean, it's so far off the scale. It makes me wonder whether actually encouraged to do that. I mean, I'm not really quite sure why. I don't really have a reason for, or why would they do that? I don't know why they would do that, but it does seem as if, it's probably true that most immigrants are probably, they just want a better life. That's probably true, but in amongst all that, there are going to be some savages amongst them. Yep. They're going to be there, and there's also, I also suspect, and I've got no evidence to back this up, but do you remember when Castro emptied all the prisons?
Yeah.
Cuba.
Yeah.
So, there was all the anti-Castro Cubans in Miami saying you've got to let all these people come here because they're prisoners of Castro and all those political prisoners. And he just opened all the prisons, and he got rid of a problem with himself and handed it to the Americans. Right. And and I'm not. I wouldn't be at all sure if that is what is happening now. That all these relatively poor third world countries are just getting rid of their problem people.
Right.
Well, you can come out of jail, but you've got to go to America. You've got to go to Europe.
Yeah, they're calling it weaponized immigration now, because it's not to better these people's lives. It is to punish the locals. It is to, of course, it's been in the regime, or the Democratic Party's playbook to open the borders to strengthen their voting base. Right? These Haitians aren't going to vote. Oh, they might. I don't know, but they're not there to vote. They're there to punish the locals. They're there to, I think, to send a message saying that the regime is in power and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And it might be a trap that they're trying to set to provoke good people into defending their property, defending their community. And once they retaliate, then the regime comes down on their heads like a ton of bricks. That's what I'm afraid of. So. And
then, well, we can't allow people to have guns.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So I mean, we've got this thing. We've got the same immigration issues as you have here, and we've had this for a while. I mean, I'm sure you've got the same thing. We're put up in hotels, giving them cell phones, giving them money, all the rest of it. And there's a theory. I mean, I've got no way of saying whether it's true or not, but are they just a police force? I said earlier there's only 130,000 police officers in the country, but we've had. I mean, our illegal immigration, the people turning up in the boats, completely undocumented people, nearly all of them young men turning up. And they are. I mean, are they a police force, a militia, to do what our own police force is not willing or able to do? I don't know if this is true. I mean, all I'm saying is that if it is true, then we are in a fair amount of trouble. And there are also people. I don't know how true this is either, and it could just be conspiracy theory or the rest of it, but. I mean, there was the photograph of, one of the hotels that was targeted after those 3 girls were murdered. One of the hotels was targeted because it was in Rotherham, I think, and Rotherham was the centre of the grooming gang.
Right.
the thing that I'm almost too ashamed to mention, you know. But there was a photograph of these migrants in this hotel in a big window on the stairwell, and it looked like one of them had an automatic weapon. It wasn't clear. It was fuzzy. It was fuzzy.
Yeah.
You couldn't say for certain, but it looked like it. And you know, all those hotels, they're getting supplied by whoever, by a group called mostly by a group called Serco, which just brings us back to Churchill, because up until recently, Serco was run by Winston Churchill's grandson.
Oh, okay.
So Serco is making an absolute fortune, getting the government contract to house all these people.
Yeah, human trafficking, pretty much.
Serco don't want this to end because they're making a fortune.
Right.
You know, but are they just supplying with food, or are they supplying with something else?
Be interesting to see if they're connected militarily. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, I've got no evidence to say whether that's true or not. But the thing is, even though I don't have evidence, you know, if I'm wrong, then I can just be safely, you know, ridiculed as a conspiracy theorist. But if I'm right,
yeah,
a serious problem I have.
Exactly.
I mean, this is something that you have, you know, that you guys over there have got an advantage over us in that, you know, you guys are armed to the teeth, you know, and we're not. And you know, it is a problem. It is a real problem. So, I don't know. It's lots of very scary things happening.
Yeah, we've got to, and that's the paradox of it all. We've got to organize, but we can't organize publicly. We can't organize. We have to be decentralized, and we have to organize around people that we can trust, you know, for things like this. And you can't say it out in the open. You can't Fed post, or God knows what will happen to you then. A good thing that's happening here are fraternities are starting to pop up of grown men getting together. They're meeting online, but they're getting together face to face. Have you heard of the Old Glory Club?
Oh, okay.
The Old Glory Club is a bunch of guys that I've been following online for quite some time, and they're getting organized with different charters and they're just fraternities. And depending on the need of that region, one of the founders was talking about if we open up a chapter in Minnesota, it might literally just be a fishing club. But they're men that know each other, that meet face to face, that can get each other's back on whatever issue they need to tackle.
Yeah, I think this is the way. I think this is the way. Yeah, yeah. Although I have seen people fish with shotguns. So.
It just sounds very American. Yes. But these are people that they'll meet online, and then they'll vet each other to see whether or not you're a Fed or not, to see whether or not you can be trusted. And then they'll have local meetups face to face, and they'll feel each other out. And they'll see what that region or that locality needs when it comes to major issues or goals they want to achieve. So I'm reserving hope. As much as obvious as everything's gone to hell in a handbasket, there's still hope when it comes to people that are organizing in small groups. Your Blade Runners, I noticed that they're wearing safety vests now and looking very official while they're conducting their business.
That's a different tack on it. Yeah, that's quite good. Yeah, so
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, you see, these things will be inevitable, and this is the recent riots we've had. You know, the unrest that we've had. You know, of course, it was completely stamped on by the by the government, by our socialist government. You know, it's like, and of course it's complete. There's this thing called the two-tier system. You know, and our Prime Minister Keir Starmer has become known as two-tier Keir.
Yeah.
And of course, it's completely obvious to anybody can see, but because he's got a 400-seat majority or whatever, he's in that stage where he doesn't have to please anybody. He doesn't care. You know, he doesn't care what people think of him, you know. And I'm surprised that he's gone so totalitarian so quickly. You know, I mean, in a way, that's his weakness, because he's a bit like Trudeau in Canada. That the first response is to reach for the totalitarian kosh.
Yeah.
Not than the last resort. It's the first resort.
Yeah.
And of course, if you do that, you've got nowhere else to go, have you? You know, and I do wonder about the I think it might have been George Orwell who said that, you know, all regimes rule through fraud and force, but when the fraud is exposed, they rely exclusively on force.
Yeah.
And it does seem as if we've got to that stage. I mean, I've seen some things on Twitter and stuff, but I mean, one of the things that is ironic about this is that, you know, consecutive governments over here have always said, well, we can't do anything about the immigration because we're part of the European Court of Human Rights, and you know, there's nothing we can do about it, you know, because it's all about our international reputation and upholding international law, as if that was the most important thing, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering how our international reputation is at the moment.
Right.
You know, to overseas people like yourself, you know, because I mean, it's utterly embarrassing to us, you know, to anybody with a kind of spine. It's utterly shameful what's happened. But in a way, we were always going to have to go through this because we had an absolutely terrible conservative right-wing, supposedly right-wing government. And we were so disgusted with them that nobody voted for them. Very few people voted for them. And so all the people who wanted the Labour government in the socialist government, they got a massive landslide. But and not that I'm one to quote Boris Johnson as any kind of authority on anything, but he did. One of the things he did say is that their mandate is a mile wide but an inch thick. You know, there's nothing to it really, but it just so happens because of our parliamentary system, they happen to be massively in charge in a parliamentary way, which again brings me back to the thing is that we need to behave as if the political class do not exist.
Yes.
Let them mandate their shit. Let them pass their laws.
Let them rock.
To abide by it.
Right.
And if enough people say, well, I don't care what the law is. I don't care what the law is. You know, if enough people do it, there's nothing they can do. There's nothing they can do. You know,
yeah.
One of the things that you find actually that I've found since COVID is, and trying to stand up for the ideas of freedom and liberty, is that you don't, you know, which is kind of a strange thing, is that you were never applauded for doing that. You were told you were a granny killer.
Yeah.
And that standing up for things like the Nuremberg Code and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, things like that, when you stand up for things like that, you don't get lauded, you get criticised. And it leads me on to this brilliant meme I saw online, and it had a picture of George Washington with sunglasses on, and it says, and he says, "It's only treason if you lose."
Right. Yeah.
And actually, I think that was pretty good. That.
Yeah. Now it's about power. It's not about principles. It's not about, well, if I just argue the facts well enough to where this guy understands it, he'll see it my way. No.
Doesn't matter.
It's about power.
Yeah.
And they have no power. The regime has no power at a very small scale. You're just hoping that scale starts to grow when it comes to civil disobedience or acting the way that you and your people feel like you need to act, or do the things we do to say. Years ago, me and a few buddies, old hardcore libertarians, we were just like, well, we're just going to quit paying taxes. Why are we funding Why are we giving money to our enemies so they can oppress us? You know, and then we realize, oh, okay, well, we have guns, but they have more guns. They will literally put us in jail, if not shoot and kill us, if we don't pay our taxes. So it's a double-edged sword when it comes to the whole gun issue. That, yeah, we've got millions of guns. Okay, well, so do the bad guys.
You're in a much better position than us.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they
no,
don't.
I know it's better, but like I said, it's a double-edged sword. The Department of Education has their own SWAT team.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, the Department of Energy has their own military.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
You know,
the other end of that, the other extreme of that was that the CIA have their own hedge fund.
Yeah.
You know, they have their own presence on Wall Street.
Yeah.
Therefore,
I know, and because the CIA wouldn't be able to affect the stock market at all, I'm sure. Yeah, I know. We're screwed so many different ways. But I personally, I just have to remind myself that Twitter is not real life. Twitter is real. Twitter is information, useful sometimes, mostly not, but it's not real life. And keep it at a smaller scale.
Yeah.
That way you can be able to operate at a better, like you can be able to get things done if you know, you can get things done better that way.
There is the whole thing of the doom scrolling, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know, you'll find one Haitian immigrant who's eating a cat, and then you'll find 100 of them. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's useful because it's an antidote to the media.
Yeah. Yes, it is. But you don't want to be black-pilled, though. You don't want to get so depressed and so black-pilled to where you're not moving forward and you're not getting things done.
Anyway, that's a tactic anyway to make people feel there's no hope.
Yeah.
And you know, things can turn around quite quickly. You know, they can turn around quite quickly. And I mean, despite what I said about the politicians not being that important, it is quite encouraging to think that, because what I mostly would like from the political system is accountability. That's what I mostly like. And, you know, he's going to release the JFK files, and he's going to release it, and he's also said he was going to rehire everybody who was fired because of the COVID thing, and they were going to get, you know, I hope that he does that. Yeah, and I hope that RFK can sort out this food supply in America and get all the shit out of the food and stop all the vaccines and bring people like Fauci to book. You know, I really hope that they can do that. But you know, nevertheless, we are dealing with politicians, and you know
right. I miss back in the day, as a very small child, I was asking my mother, I think it was the Ford Carter election, 76, who she was going to vote for, something like that. And she said something to the effect, well, the president really is just for foreign relations, you know, it's foreign policy. And she said she thought that Ford had a better foreign policy or something like that. Like I said, I was maybe 10. And I wish we could go back there to where the president just is a figurehead. And when it comes to détente or peace talks or something like that, that's what he does. Instead, it's day one. They're writing executive orders about DEI. They're writing executive orders about all kinds of crap, you know, and the executive branch has gotten way out of hand. Pisses me off that the legislative branch, who is supposed to control the purse strings and fund everybody, they've completely gone off the rails when it comes to their responsibility. Don't get me started.
And how many times has the Republicans shrunk the state? Probably about the same amount of times as the Conservative Party has done the same thing over here. Like never.
Yeah.
I'll bet you never.
Yeah.
Even during Reagan's time, I'll bet it was never.
No, Reagan, our taxes actually went up, and we lost a couple. I think it was during Reagan is when you couldn't own automatic weapens. Yet Reagan is lauded as some big right wing, wonderful.
I didn't know that. I
maybe, like, I may need more coffee, but I think it was during Reagan's administration when we lost our right to own machine guns. I think we should own machine guns, bazookas, whatever we want. You know, and let the.
Is it semi-automatic weapons you're allowed?
Yes. Yes.
So a machine gun, just for definition, is you keep the finger on the trigger, and it repeats. Whereas a semi-automatic is you have to keep pulling the trigger.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
You know. So anyway, I've lost my train of thought. It should boil down to the politicians just go rot. Go do whatever you do. I'm going to live my life like this. I'm going to keep my family safe. I'm going to keep my community clean and in well order. I've got this. Y'all can go away now. Ultimately that's my goal. And
I think we do need to sort of push that attitude. I mean, there's a few people over here saying, and I think this is true as well, is it seems a little bit wishy-washy, but it isn't actually. It's quite important. Is this, we've got to have a cultural and almost a spiritual rejuvenation of the country, you know, because I guess you get the same in America, but this constant attack on everything that is British, every single thing that we've done, and it's all racist and we're all terrible, and it's just it's relentless. This stuff is fucking relentless, and people have just they're up to here with it now, you know. And people are starting to push back now, so
good.
And I think it's high time, really, you know. But you know, because you see, one of the things that in Ireland, they've had a lot of the same problems as we've had with regard to the immigration. And one of the things, this is where the blob sometimes isn't very intelligent, you see. Now, we had the British Empire, you know, a quarter of the world's population was under our control at one point. Now, I'm supposed to feel ashamed about that, you know, and, you know, well, maybe, but I'm also quite impressed as well.
Right.
But the guilt tripping is because we had the empire. In fact, they started putting up billboards in the street, and I saw one online, and it had a picture of all these flags all around the edge of it, and it said, "We didn't come to Britain; Britain came to us." You know, thereby being, well, that's why everybody's here now. That's why the whole world is in this country now, because it's our fault.
Revenge.
It's revenge. Yeah. But you know, there's one
how dare you raise their standard of living and bring them technology and better their lives whatsoever.
As if they wouldn't have done it if they could.
Right.
I mean, this is the thing. It's like, you know, and the best thing that this country has ever done, and probably the best thing that any country has ever done, is we basically abolished slavery. Yeah, we had slavery like everyone else did.
How about literacy rates? Literacy rates. People can read because of Britain, pretty much, in my opinion. You know. Yeah.
But that one thing, you know, and an Irish writer said that was one of the 3 or 4 most positive things that any nation has ever done. And that's an Irishman said that, you know. And also in Ireland, because they're having the immigration, they're having it even harder than us by saying, because Ireland's quite empty. It's only 5 people live there. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to guilt trip the Irish as well. But the Irish never had an empire. And so the Irish are not falling for that. The Irish have started burning down these places. And so this is where the blob's not that intelligent, because they thought, well, this worked with the British. We managed to guilt trip the British.
Right. Well, keep in mind the blob is not smart at all. They're powerful. They have power. They have it's a ball peen hammer, You know, it's not a laser guided missile. That's a horrible analogy, but you know what I mean. They're not that smart.
It's a not a scalpel. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
They're not impressive people at all. They're in power, and they've set up the system so they can keep their power, and once they leave, they can bring in somebody else that can perpetuate the system. They're not smart. They're not wise. They have no foresight, and those that do are incredibly malicious. So, but that doesn't make them smart, you know. And kudos to the Irish, man. I've got a bit of Irish blood in me, not much, but a little bit.
Everyone's got a bit of Irish blood in them, man.
Okay, all right. Well, they got busy back in the day, apparently, because everybody.
Yeah, they'll take anyone as well. Yeah, it's like you go to Ireland, and they're desperate to know whether you've got any Irish blood in you. Desperate, you know, and you know, it's like Kennedy and Obama, and everyone's got Irish blood in them, you know. Right. But yeah, I mean, they've reacted to this stuff with a lot more balls than we have, to be fair to them. But you know, it's like, that's what I'm saying, that they thought they could guilt trip the Irish in the same way. And the thing is that when people have you know, actually gone and asked some of these immigrants, you know, why are you here, you know, the rest of it, and some of them have said, well, because of your empire. You know, and the Irish said, well, we didn't have an empire. So that tells me they've been schooled to say that. Just about the empire, which makes me wonder whether they're being schooled in lots of other ways as well. You know, just go over there. It doesn't matter if you misbehave. That, you know, the women are they're all slags and whores anyway. They all want it. You know, they just love it really. And this is what I think that they are being told. You know. Yeah. I mean, you know, some of the women who went over to India in the 60s have got a lot to answer for here, but you know, most of it is just bullshit, really. You know, so yeah, but you know, well, I suppose we'll see what's going to happen, I guess, but we've got a lot to deal with, that's for sure. But it certainly would be, at least put the cat amongst the pigeons if Trump was back in the White House, that's for sure. You know, because at least you'd feel
it would slow down the crazy train that we're on. That's for sure. Yes, I'm not sure if it'll stop the crazy train, but it would slow it down. If Harris stayed in power, it would be status quo plus. It would get worse, and nothing would change for the better. That's
well. I hope you don't have to endure what we've having to endure, because you know the Conservative government was terrible, the worst we've ever had, and then we got one that was worse.
Oh God, you're right.
It all seems to happen that way. We don't actually get a better one. We just get whatever bad one we get one that's even worse. And the Labour Party are pretty impressive like that. Yeah. No matter how bad the Conservatives are, and they are terrible. Yeah. The Labour Party always managed to up their game and be even worse. You know.
That's ridiculous. We do need to go here pretty soon, but maybe for next talk, Tommy Robinson. What do you think of? Is he gaining any momentum on?
Yes, he is. He absolutely is, and the establishment of spitting teeth about it. They really don't like him because he's actually turning almost into, and it feels strange saying such a thing, but he's almost turning into a bit of an elder statesman. You know,
well, he's been doing it for years.
Yes. And, I mean, I used to believe what they used to say about him. I used to believe that he was a racist git, and we didn't want anything to do with him, and he was always the person that everybody could hate.
Right.
And I fell for it. And you know, I'm not falling for it anymore, and so are millions of others. You know, they don't like it. They really don't like it, and he's at serious risk of arrest and a long time in prison if he comes back here. But he says he's going to come back.
I hope he does. I hope he does, with plenty of protection around him.
Well, the thing is, you know, whatever you might say about him, you know, that guy's got some balls.
Yeah.
Balls, you know, and
Kind of like Alex Jones.
yeah,
You know, I grew up. I remember as a teenager hearing about Alex Jones and went, "Wow, that guy's out of here! Whoa, my God!" You know, like,
yeah.
okay, wow, you know. But
He's been right about almost everything, isn't he?
almost everything, yeah, it's eerie. So, but I mean, that's kind of apples to oranges. But when it comes to thinking somebody's just outlandishly wrong about something and being completely right, um, well, that's good because see, yeah, and that's the problem we're running against here now. Is that any kind of leadership, like a Tommy Robinson type of leadership, that were to poke his head up now would be taken out one way or another. So,
you know,
because that's why we have to stay. That's why we have to stay decentralized,
yeah,
and almost completely anonymous.
yeah.
Or,
We
or
can't
something
get in the
happen.
crosshairs of the we can't get in the crosshairs of the establishment because they will take us down. You know.
Yeah, the establishment keeps setting up these little traps for us.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to have a riot here. We're going to have, you know, trans activists doing this, that, and they're just hoping because it's not their action, it's our reaction that they're wanting, so they can come down like a ton of bricks on our heads. So we've got to be very careful.
The thing about Tommy Robinson is you know, he's intelligent enough, but he's not a massive in intellect, you know, and
Right.
he does get himself into trouble sometimes, you know, but
Right.
he's not perfect, you know. He's
Right.
just a working class lad. He's not perfect, you know.
Right.
The person who says everything that he says, but in an upper class English accent, is Douglas Murray, you know. And Douglas Murray, he says the same things, but because Douglas Murray says everything in an upper class accent, he's not. But the thing about him is that even he is being targeted now. There's an absolute piece of pond life called Alistair Campbell, who was one of Tony Blair's closest people.
Okay.
He was the guy who, it seems, what they called sexed up the MI6 dossier, which allowed us to the sort of fig leaf of legitimacy of going into Iraq with George Bush, you know, and that was, you know, and you know, he's now trying to present himself as some sort of moral authority, and everybody knows he's a shitbag. You know, yeah. He is a terrible, terrible, terrible person, and he's been trying to snitch Douglas Murray to the police. And Douglas Murray now lives in New York, so he doesn't give a shit, you know. So
yeah. Well, interesting with Douglas Murray, isn't he staunchly pro-Israel?
Well, he is. That is his position. Yeah, that is his position. And of course, a lot of people don't like that, you know. And you know,
it's the only thing I've disagreed with him about. Disagreed about because and saying that I'm not incredibly pro-Palestine at all.
Yeah,
I just want all that crap to be over with. I could care less about Israel. I could care less about Palestine. I just want the wars to end.
Yeah,
and you can't even call. And I know we're running late here, and I need to go. But you can't even call Israel-Palestine a war. I'm sorry, because the Palestinians aren't very well armed. I'm sorry, to have a war, you need a well-armed opponent. And
I suppose you're right. I mean,
Israel does not have a well-armed opponent. It's a massacre, in my opinion. But that's, like I said, maybe we could save that for another video.
Well, the only thing I would say about that is, and this is something that Brett Weinstein was saying, is that he said that, and I think this is important, is that during COVID and in the aftermath of COVID, he said there was a pro-freedom resistance began to coalesce, you know, with all sorts of people from all over the place, genuine people who genuinely were for the ideas of liberty and freedom.
Yeah. And
then October the 7th happened.
Yeah.
Cut that straight down the middle.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's something, you know, I'm reserving my opinion on the Israel-Palestine thing. I mean, I have to say that I'm unpersuaded mostly by the Palestinian arguments, but I'm letting things run, and you know, we'll have to see because it sounds as if Netanyahu himself is a pretty devious character, you know.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, it's like I say, that same friend of mine who wants me to reappraise my opinion of Winston Churchill is very much on the Palestinian side. So, but we'll see. I guess we'll see.
Yes.
We'll have to see how that pans out, I guess. But we should do this again fairly soon, mate, because we've missed a few, haven't we?
Yes, we have. Life gets in the way sometimes.
We are coming up to a relatively important date, which you know. So I don't know. Maybe we could try and do this in a couple of weeks again.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Let me know. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Okay. Well, it was nice talking to you again, mate, and we'll talk again soon.
Take care, buddy.
All right, mate. Thanks a lot. Cheers, mate.
You too.